Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a little bit of while. It's been a while. I know Robin is. I like to say this. Robin is on assignment. Rich has got a couple of things going on too. So Robin, I decided to jump on and just have a quick little chat. If you don't know the gentleman to my, let me see which way is this. My right, but it looks like it's my left. Rob from McDojo Life, the infamous McDojo Life out on Instagram. Rob, thank you for joining today for a quick chat. How you doing today, brother?
Dude, living the dream. Thank you for having me. Always enjoy standing in when I can. Robin's a homie. You're a homie. It's always good to talk shop.
Yeah, man. It's been a little while. The end of the year has definitely gotten busy. I know Robin has announced he and his wife are expecting a baby relatively soon, so he's really busy with that. Rich has got a ton of things going on with Winter Warrior, and we'll be back soon. But for the time being, let's get together and just talk about some stuff that's going on in martial arts. I mean, like we've been post MMA for me for 2 weeks, almost going to 3 weeks, and finally that drought ends. It actually ends tonight, and most people are like, "What are you talking about? The UFC is this weekend." Actually, if you're a complete hardcore fan, what's happening tonight is Invicta. Invicta 45 is on right
Oh,
now.
there
So
we
if you're
go.
if you're desperate for some MMA action, you can't wait to Friday, Saturday. Invicta's on tonight. The ladies get a chance to shine. It's always good to see that that Invicta's been doing a great job. I know a couple of fighters that are over there that have come from like sport karate world, and they've been training, and it gives them a platform to shine on. It's really good to see that this is still going. Of course, you've had some familiar names come out there: Michelle Waterson, Angela Hill. All these are former fighters from Victor that have made it to different leagues. But it's good to see that.
For sure, man. Like when you look at Invicta, you can kind of see it as like a stepping stone for female fighters to, use Invicta. And I'm not saying that Invicta in any way is less competition because these are all very hungry fighters that are coming up. But when and you
Mhm.
see people and the caliber of people who leave Invicta and go to ONE FC and go to Bellator and go to UFC, we're talking about straight up killers, man. And so Invicta is a great way if you're trying to see the real up and comers that you're going to see in those bigger promotions. You're gonna see them there for sure.
Absolutely, unless the ladies just they can do their thing. You don't have to worry about okay, well, who's headlining the card here? Is Connor headlining? Is Dustin? Is Khabib headlining? No, there are a couple lady fighters that have earned their keep. They've made it to the top of the heap, and like you said, it does offer them a bit of a shining light, another avenue to step on up and everything. And let the ladies do the thing, man.
Let them shine, man. They put in the work. Let them do it.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, from the female from a female fighter or someone that wants to be in the martial arts, whenever you go to a martial arts school, you're going to be in the minority. You're going to be there are going to be less female fighters there. There are going to be less female fighters in jiu-jitsu. There are going to be less female fighters in Muay Thai, etc. on down the line. So they spend the majority of their time sparring and training with men. Um, I don't necessarily have I don't have a problem with that, but they need to play. Let's have them shine. You're not going to see. Well, I hope you don't see combat. We see these things on the internet all the time. Men fighting women. It always makes me cringe. But let the even playing field for ladies to be out there and
We
show up and
actually
shine.
had a thing. I put together a thing years ago. It was we had an internet troll, and he didn't know that I ran McDojo Life, and so
Mhm,
I put out when I was instructing full time about a
mhm.
seminar that I was teaching at the facility I was at, and he starts talking trash to all the women, and he's talking ridiculous things. He's like, "I don't care how much training you have. There's no way that a trained woman can ever beat an untrained man." Blah blah blah, and he's just talking trash. And he was like an acquaintance. So I hit him up and I was like, dude, if you think that's funny, I was like, I'd appreciate it if you stop. This is my job. And like,
Mhm.
these are my clients and you're being really disrespectful. And then he went on to let me know he was serious. And I was like, dude, all right, well, I can tell you that there are definitely some women out there that I have experienced beating the crap out of me that were fantastic kickboxers. Like back in the day when I'd go down to Orlando and everybody would have these big group classes and you'd see like these straight up animals down there, like Raymond Daniels would be down there sometimes, guys like Chris Walker, Joe Fife, Preston Clemens would be down there. You get all these like fantastic fighters that were down there and they would all just be animals. And then you'd have these female fighters and one of them was a world class kickboxer. And the first time I ever touched gloves with her, she gave me advice. She was like, "You might want to put that hand up." And so I went to go put the hand up, and she had already kicked me in the face. And I was like, oh, that sucks. But we actually wind up putting on a match between him and that female that he was, him and another female, and she just whooped him twice. And we put it out there online. But at the end of the day, man, like these chicks are strong. They work hard. Like they put in the effort.
I've had one of my friends who's hey, you're involved in martial arts. You know, these ladies in the UFC. He picked a name out. He was like, it was interesting. And I'll tell you the name. Once I tell you the name, he'll be like, oh yeah, you would die. He was like, these ladies out there, you know, they're what 5'1", 5'7". Yeah, the average height, you know, 5'4", 5'2". Women are usually shorter than men. But would she be able to, you know, do you think she'd be able to beat me? This woman, her name is Valentina. I said, oh, you would die. I said, you couldn't have picked the worst person ever to think that you're going to go push her around. Calm your male ego, because if you ever roll up on like a lady like that, good knowing you're going to be on multiple highlights. Robin's probably going to break down that video for Haymaker somewhere down the line. You're going to be called Steve, and you're going to absolutely get mashed. Because
or like Gabby Garcia. Gabby Garcia is like what? You know, 200 and something pounds. All she does is lift weights all the time. She trains jiu-jitsu all the time. Like it's not going to be what you think it is. I promise. It's going to be a lot different.
It would be an absolute nightmare. It's one of those moments you would like see the video. It was right then he realized he screwed up. You know, right then and there, when you realize, oh man, this is real. But
when keeping it real goes wrong, and then he's like, leg is inside himself, and he's like, how did that get in there?
How did that? What happened? You know. So definitely give a little shout out to the ladies. Let's see. As I mentioned, let's cover Bellator next. Bellator is coming up, and then their next event is on January 29th. So let's share that real quick. And looks like you got Ryan Bader defending his. Let me see. Is this the heavyweight belt?
He is a fellow Killcliff alum. We're sponsored by the same company, and so I got to go on a trip with Ryan Bader. Well, first of all, Ryan Bader actually almost beat me down one time outside the club. Because
is this a good story to share here?
I mean, we were at the bar, and he didn't have a fight going on, and so we were just having some drinks or whatever, and the company was cool enough to take us out, and he was messing with me, which I didn't know that about his personality, but he's one of those guys that just kind of messes with you a little bit. And now that I know that, it's cool, but at the time I was like, oh my god, like. This dude at the time, I think he had 2 belts in Bellator. And so he's like poking my chest. And then like, I was like, I'm not going to just let him punk me. Like, I don't care who he is. I'm like, he's going to beat me up, but I'm not just going to let him punk me. So we wind up like getting outside, and we're about to leave. And then he went to go do it again. And I arm dragged him real fast and just held on to his back. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, I don't know what to do now. He's going to murder me. And so the next day we wind up going to this event. And everything was cool because we were just dicking around. But when we wound up going to this event, somebody was taking photos, and I was like, yo, can I get a picture with you? He's like, yeah, sure. And I thought like, oh, cool, we're cool. And then like mid photo, he literally picks me up, and I was like, ah. And then, but I still have that photo, and the terror on my face is real.
It's real. It's as real as it gets. And absolutely, I can't imagine an absolute machine like that just. This dude is a fantastic wrestler. He's just going to pick you up, and you're just thinking that I have made a terrible mistake at this point. And, that's that. Let's see what. So,
but I got to tell you, man, he's a cool dude, and he puts in the work. And when I saw him fight Fedor, and like he was able to put him out, it was like, holy crap! Like you really know what's up. Like you really got this, and so it's really cool to see. That his career has been so long. Like he's been at this for a really long time.
Well, one of the things that was interesting, I always find interesting, is you see the guys that are extremely good wrestlers, and all of a sudden they're allowed to punch. They're allowed to smash with these hammers that they have called fists that they could not do while wrestling. And a lot of them realize that, man, you've got a ton of strength built up here. And when they start letting loose, on guys, they can put people to sleep night really quick, just because they haven't been able to do that all throughout their collegiate and sometimes Olympic careers. You can't punch, and now you're giving someone a green light, and you're adding a couple weapons into it. Good luck.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at this weight difference here. It's like 265 and 233. Like they're not little dudes by any means, but man, that's a hell of a gap. And I'm also looking at that. Bader's a taller dude. I'm going to imagine that he probably has the reach here as well. So that's going to be a factor. And he has the experience. So, this up and coming dude, it looks like at 11-1, that's a big step for an 11-1 guy. So kudos to him for making it to the big leagues and being able to fight for that belt.
You got your work cut out for you. Definitely familiar face here. Benson Henderson still doing it versus Islam Mamedov. This is I still enjoy seeing Benson fight, man. Even from back in the WC days, all up to UFC and now Bellator. I mean, he's a dude that just he well deserves the nickname Smooth, because you see those guys hanging out in the dojo where every action they have is just like slick, smooth, just like you look like you're cutting corners. You're trying to do the same thing they're doing, and they just do it naturally. And he's one of those fighters,
I'm looking at this, I think that he's probably one of those guys who's, I guess you could call it like a stepping stone type fighter for guys right now, because he does have a name for himself. Mm-hmm. He has been in the game for a really long time. He is a good fighter, still a good fighter. And so he's still a dangerous man. But, when it comes to this particular fight, I just got to give this to Islam. I really think that he's going to have this one, but I think that, Benson's gonna do work. I still think it's not going to be an easy win, but at the same time, I got to go with Islam.
As you said, as a little bit of a senior fighter, almost as I would not call him a gatekeeper, but he is seeming in that role. He's held gold before, and now, like you see, they're up and coming guys that say, "Hey, you know what? If I beat this dude, eyes are going to be on me." I'm going to be curious to see how this one turns out. Let's see. Next up, that's still in the main card. Henry Corrales versus Aiden. I'm not familiar with either of these fighters. Featherweights, a little bit, a good amount of experience. They're tall featherweights too, man.
Dude, watching the light guys fight is like my favorite, because they just go at it, and there's all that energy that just never seems to go away. It's like my favorite guys to watch are the small, like compact dudes, because they just scrap and they just get after it, and you can get like a really entertaining fight out of some small dudes. I don't know if you saw the last UFC card. Man, it must have been actually well before that, but I saw this just amazing UFC card. It had to be one of the best cards I'd ever seen. And like all the little dudes seemed to just like go ham on each other during that card. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, most people say that the lightweight division is a shark's tank. But however, you start going down 45ers and 35ers, it's still the same, And like you said, all day, incredible gas tank. This is down to 125, but I think of Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse just goes, man. He takes the fight wherever it is, and rolls with it, and action all the time.
And he has one of my favorite submissions of all time. That belly to back suplex to the armbar is just
beautiful. You have to look at that in slow motion to really appreciate the technique that he used, and you have to wonder. One of the things I know that he's an avid video game player, and you could almost see someone like, all right, I'm setting him up for this. First of all, I'm going to lift him up, and as he's coming down, I'm going to catch him in the armbar. And you wonder, like, did you even think all of that out, or did it just happen instantly in the moment?
I saw a clip. It was like yesterday or the day before of him like recreating that, and so I think this is something that he's really put in he like really puts in the work, like to say, I really want to get that pulled off one day. Right. And he's just drilling the shit he's just drilling it over and over and over again. I watch my mouth, but like guys like that are really methodical, man. Like, he does play video games, and I kind of like the fact that, guys like him, guys like Izzy embrace their nerd, but when you get on the mat, like, they're terrifying.
Yes. And it's an interesting fusion. Now, when you think about martial arts in itself, a lot of people that would start martial arts may have been bullied, or may have been in nerd culture / geek culture, whatever. So you would have a lot of people. Wonder Boy is a complete anime nut. He's whenever we talk to him, he's like, "Have you watched this anime? Have you watched this? Have you watched this?" And most people, if you just start a conversation like that, they're gonna be like, if they're not into it, like, what? I don't understand. And then you're like, oh, by the way, the guy that's talking is, he'll kick your head in the stratosphere. Oh, well, I guess it's cool then, But everyone, it is interesting, because a lot of people that are out there, they're avid gamers. I know I see Robert Whitaker playing Call of Duty all the time, and other games on the PlayStation. I've seen Megan Anderson. She's an avid Call of Duty player. where she plays and streams all the time.
Yeah,
So
man. Even
it's out there in the culture.
Angie Hill. Angie
Yes.
Hill's gaming all the time too, or she was for a while, and now she might be busy because I know
Oh,
she's deep into the UFC, like commentaries and behind the scenes stuff. She's putting in work now, but like and fighting, which is super impressive.
Speaking of, today's her birthday, so shout out to Angela Hill.
Yeah, man. Happy
Straight
birthday.
from PG County, Maryland. Something that we share in common. That I had a chance to meet her. She's absolutely a sweetheart individual. And you know what? You talk about someone that's always ready. Like, hey, you want to fight next week? Boom, she's in. She's gonna show up. Speaking. Let's turn this to a little bit of meme action. One of the things that was great on McDojo Live today is that you got a shout out about Michael Bisping doing his podcast.
Yeah, man. I've been pretty fortunate with stuff like that. Like it's really cool that first of all, it's cool to get recognition for whatever you do from your peers, no matter who they are, no matter what their status. But at the end of the day, when you get it from guys with I guess you could say a bigger following, or you get guys who are more respected, who have been there, done that. Bisping was awesome to give me that shout out. That was really cool of him. And that's not the first time he's done it. Segura and Rogan, it's just really surreal and weird. It's super weird.
Now, do you usually, when this happens, and I remember the clip from Rogan's show when you mentioned your channel, do you get that? Is that somebody calling you like, yo, hey, they mentioned your name, you got to check this out? Or were you? I can only imagine if you were watching at that time, if you saw it. Are you getting like someone's telling you and you're like, hey, you got to go check this out?
Usually,
notified of that.
Usually, like I remember the very first time it ever happened, which I guess it's like a life-changing moment, which is why I remember it, is I was painting the dojo because we were getting ready for summer camp during that time at the facility that I was working at. And I was the camp director. So I'm getting everything ready for the summer camp. And we had right next door rented the space so that way we could have extra space for summer camp. So it would be separate from the actual studio. And so I'm painting this thing, getting it all ready to go. And then my phone starts vibrating. And I was like, I thought something was wrong with it because it just wouldn't stop. And so I just like shut it off and I put it back in my pocket. And then so, day moves on, and then I go back over to the academy, and then somebody went to go pick up one of their kids after the kids class. And they were like, dude, congratulations. And I was like, for what? Like, I don't know. They were like, dude, Rogan talked about you for like 15 minutes on the show. I was like, really? And then I turned my phone on, and like, if you ever turn on an iPhone with like the notifications, they just started scrolling. And I was like, what the hell? And then next thing you know, like that was a huge boost to allow me to be able to do this for a living now. So I am nothing but grateful for stuff like that. It means so much. It's really cool.
It is one of those like, eureka moments and everything that you can kind of point right there where things start to, to accelerate from there. That's an amazing story. I think that's actually on, I think it's on your YouTube page.
Maybe I know it's something I've talked about before. And anytime like people ask me about stuff like that, I always try to mention it because, I'm very grateful for that. And it really did change my life in a very weird direction, but a very cool one.
Well, I know the other day I tuned in. You had I think it was Monday. You had one of your live streams going, and you were threatened. You were threatened in the afternoon, and it kind of stems from. Well, I'm going to put this up now. This guy's become a meme as late in the MMA community, and it's interesting because he's now getting parodied by like UFC or MMA fighters that are talking about some of the things that he's doing. He seems to have kind of accepted that he is a meme, and go over there. But you've had some interactions with them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I've been calling this guy out for a very long time. Obviously, my job in the industry, if anyone doesn't know, is I call out fakes, frauds, phonies, con men, and pedophiles in the martial arts industry. And I saw him teaching a child literally how to dodge a bullet. Now he has since taken this video down, but I still leave mine up. So if you want to see some of his older stuff where he's teaching even more nonsense, but to me, things like the things that he has taught is dangerous, but not even simply because of what he's taught. Like for instance, just some examples of things that he's taught that he was serious about, because he's not joking, by the way, if anyone's asking. One of the things he taught was how to disarm a gun after you were shot point blank in the chest. Do you know what's going to happen after you get shot point blank in the chest? You're going to die. I'm sorry, it's over for you, right? So he taught that. He taught, taking a gun out of battery by just pressing the slide forward, which naturally, anytime you reach for something in someone's hand, they're going to automatically pull away, causing you to get shot. Literally teaching people how to dodge bullets, which is something he still shows people. He showed that to Snoop Dogg literally yesterday or today. And then Snoop Dogg was so impressed. I was in my head, I'm like, you're impressed because he literally told you how to react. He said, when I move, pull the trigger, which is not how you would normally react. Normally, if I have a gun on you and you move, I'm going to point it at you. And so, I've been calling this guy out for a while. And at the end of the day, the dangerous part isn't necessarily, again, the techniques. It's the narcissism. When you have the world's attention like he does right now, and you have some of the best people in the world, we're talking Navy SEALs, Special Forces operators, tactical firearms instructors. Oh, well, sweet. I'm glad Michael's enjoying it. But you have some of the pro fighters, all have called this man out. Uriah Hall was on my show and challenged him as well. But all these great people in the self-defense, martial arts, and tactical firearms industry have all called him out. Some of the best in the world have. And rather than doing the right thing as an instructor, which would be going, you know what? Maybe these guys who have clearly been doing this longer than me, who are specialists in their arts, maybe I could be wrong. Why don't you guys come in, teach a seminar, let's make content together, and then I can learn something. But rather than doing that, he blocks all comments on his Instagram page, which lets you know something right off the bat. He deletes anyone and blocks anyone's comments, or he blocks anyone who speaks out against them and deletes most negative comments. He even goes as far as calling people racist who speak out against him. I've seen that on his Google reviews where it's like an automatic response. And so that tells me that this is someone who is an extreme narcissist and is much happier taking people's money than actually caring, one, about his community and caring about his students' well-being. Because with that much attention, why not give your students the best education they could have?
I agree with you. Definitely shout out to you, Michael. What we normally, Rob and I are filling in for Robin and Richard. We normally have a nice little martial arts conversation, but of course, Rob from McDojo Life, world famous and continue to be famous. Soon to have a nice documentary out. We're just having a nice conversation about the martial arts in the beginning, but I agree with you completely. It's, the idea, and I saw the video with the young little girl where he was telling her to move her head and everything. It's just, and it's funny that a lot of the parody videos go into talking about people that are, they even show them thinking that like, I'm going to do this move, even playing in their head, and they go do the move and poof, they're in clouds and, sorry.
And that's him leaning into the parody. Like somebody just wrote, they said initially that they thought that Detroit guy was doing a Master Ken, which is the danger here, is because right now people are thinking that, okay, well, since he's leaning into the parody and since he's leaning into the fact that he's incompetent, that they think that he's just joking, because who would ever teach you how to disarm a gun after getting shot in the chest? But this is literally the same guy who hasn't paid his taxes in his previous building since 2017. This is also the same guy who isn't Detroit survival training. His facilities in Ferndale. It's Ferndale survival training, but Detroit just sounds so much better because
Detroit sounds a little bit better than Ferndale.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so when you're really thinking about like the way that he presents himself, he really does control the narrative. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and use the entire show to just bash him, but I would say anybody who's watching this right now, I did do a breakdown video about him. And if you don't want to watch my breakdown video, by all means, there are plenty of other people who have done the exact same thing. But you can go to our YouTube channel and just check it out. It's called McDojo Breakdown, Dusty Threat Management. And you can check out all of the issues that I have had up to that point with Dale. And now I have more issues with Dale, especially since there was a gentleman, and this will be my last thing about him, but there was a gentleman, his name is Kenji. And Kenji went to Dale Brown's facility with the intent of debunking Dale Brown's stuff. And so when he went to Dale Brown's facility, he actually did a firearm disarm with Dale Brown. Dale Brown handed him the firearm. He has a firearm. Dale Brown went for the disarm and he got shot. And so Dale Brown went to go do it again. And that time he tried to make it a surprise party for the disarm and tried to rush him in a surprise mid-talk and still got shot. So the response that Dale Brown had to that was very telling. And I would pray no other martial arts instructor out there would let their ego get this bad. But after that, Dale Brown was very irritated. And so what he did was he called up somebody in front of the class to help demonstrate a technique. Now, whenever you're in front of a martial arts class demonstrating a technique without resistance, you would hope that your instructor is going to take care of you and not purposely try to hurt you. But that's exactly what Dale Brown did. He got Kenji in a wrist lock. Kenji was willing participant in this. He was not trying to resist whatsoever. And then Dale Brown brags about purposely trying to hurt him during this demonstration and tries to make it seem like he was in a sparring match with the guy. He literally says he drug him around the mat. It's like, no, he was volunteering and he was demonstrating a technique with you willingly without resistance. And you purposely tried to hurt him. And now you're using that as a rebuttal for you getting shot like 17 times in the chest. Like, that's not a good response, man. As a matter of fact, if Kenji did get hurt, there would be grounds for a lawsuit because it was clear that he was trying to hurt him. And Dale Brown admits that. If Dale Brown really wants it, he can get it anytime. I offered to pay for his flight. I offered to pay for his food. I offered to pay for his hotel. And I offered for him to meet us at a neutral facility outside of his facility where he can control the narrative. And he blocked me. Tom DeBlas offered him $50,000 for him to just spar one of his female students. He blocked him, doesn't respond. And so at the end of the day, you know what? It is what it is. He's going to be the troll he wants to be or whatever, but make no mistake, he's not joking.
Man, well, here's an interesting question. And we'll see if, as I mentioned before, you've got the potential documentary coming up. Let's say, for example, you're blessed to do a second one,
Yeah.
Do you think in any space in this universe, you would actually be able to get him in for an interview or a demonstration?
I highly doubt it. And I think that this is a part of him controlling the narrative is because there are people who are way more famous than me, who are way more skilled than me, who have already called him out. And of course, the response is always the same. Tim Kennedy did the same thing, got blocked. Tom DeBlas did it, got blocked, and so he wants to control that narrative. And so the main issue isn't really people who train. People who train already are aware that this guy is full of it. The problem is the people who don't train, the people who are looking to get into
see this. Yes.
And so in that area, if somebody was looking for that particular line of self-defense, you're not going to find this facility in Detroit. I'm just letting you know that right now. You're going to go to a much nicer part of town called Ferndale. It's about 17 minutes roughly away from the heart of Detroit. And you'll go in there, and he's got this beautiful facility, and he's got all these great airsoft pistols. One thing that they do not do at that facility, just so you're aware, is they do not spar and they do not pressure test their techniques, which is extremely important when you're trying to know if something actually works. And so it's one of those things where if he ever wants to do an interview, I'm down. If he ever wants to meet, I'm more than down. And if he ever wants to pressure test, I tried to pay for it, and he blocked me instead. So I can only do what I can do, I guess.
Yeah, that's all you can do. And just mentioned the other day when I was checking your it was an afternoon chat, which I found it interesting because usually if I don't catch you in the morning, we usually do it. And I saw that you're live in the afternoon. So someone threatened you; they wanted to fight you. This happens all the time in your line of work.
Dude, it's like I'm wearing the headband. I don't know if you ever watch Afro Samurai, but like that #1 headband, anime dude too. But like, it's a very strange thing because I try to be as approachable as I can be. I gave myself very specific rules when I started my job, which was I would answer every direct message I ever got. I'd go on every show I was ever asked to do, which I still do to this day. And then I said that I would make sure that I was responsive and interactive with my audience. And so I go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Instagram, and I let anyone join in a conversation like we're having now. I don't care who they are. I let anybody do it, especially people who I've called out. Like, please, by all means, give me content because there's a reason I haven't been sued. Because I do my research, and I'm not going to get hit with slander or libel because everything that I say on my YouTube channel about these people is true, as crazy as they sound. But that particular guy was mad that this is I guess you could say a cult of personality. There's a guy named DKU, and DKU recently took a fight with a guy named Bradley Scott from the UFC, our former UFC fighter. He did so on a very short notice. It was roughly about a 2 weeks notice, and he still hasn't yet to pay Bradley, by the way. just as a heads up. So there might be a lawsuit going on there. But then he wound up getting stalked for like 6 rounds in that fight. It was really bad. And so I have my own issues with DKU for several other reasons. But then somebody was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're not even willing to meet him. I was like, I spoke directly to him. He was like, well, that's not the same. Like, oh yeah, like I'm going to fly to South Korea just to have a conversation. Like, yes, let's spend thousands of dollars for this conversation.
Just to talk, sure.
Yeah, just to talk. And then I was like, I'm willing to meet him. I was like, I'm willing to meet anyone who wants to meet me. Like, that we're living in reality. Like, this isn't feudal Japan. We're not just going place to place, physically assaulting people like you would imagine in a movie. This is real life. And so I'm not scared to meet anyone because at the end of the day, I'm not a moron. Like, and I've been training for a long time. But when it comes down to like meeting with this dude, he threatened me. And I was like, well, if you really want to meet up and you really want that to happen, prove it. Just go live with me. If you go live with me, I am more than welcome to set that up. We'll find a neutral facility like I always do. And then we can put on the gloves. Like, I'm not new. I look nerdy as hell from this. I get that. But like, I come from like the gutters. And so I come from like bar fights when I was 15, like in Club Plush that was in Jacksonville. I come from 2-on-2 fights. I come from going international and competing. I was on an international kickboxing team for 2 years with some very elite level guys who all were much better than me, but somehow I managed to get on there. And at the end of the day, like, if I'm going to get threatened, like, I'll give you an opportunity to talk to me. And if you really want it, come home. Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to lose. And that's not going to hurt my ego. There are plenty of people better than me.
All this and more over at McDojo Life on Instagram, on YouTube. I'm telling you, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I saw that in the afternoon, and it was a breath of fresh air because I'm sitting here working on it. I was like, what? Rob's live. Okay, let's see. There must be something going on. So yeah, some guy threatened him. He comes on, whatever. We're going to preview what the UFC is coming up here. There's a question. I'll let you handle that. What do you think about this question?
Is Izzy Adesanya modern day Bruce Lee? By the way, everybody's talking about our namesakes today because he is also sponsored by Kill Clip. So forgive me for plugging that in, but hey, y'all bringing him up, not me.
This is true.
But Izzy, no. There's a big difference between Bruce Lee and Izzy, and some people might not like my opinion, but the truth is that Bruce Lee was never a professional fighter. Izzy Adesanya has spent his entire career and life dedicated to actually being a professional fighter. I think Izzy has a much different personality than Bruce Lee. I think Bruce Lee was much more prolific. I think the things that Bruce Lee said made people like Izzy want to join martial arts. I think people like Izzy looked up to somebody like a Bruce Lee as a kid and wanted to emulate. And I think that if you're looking at impact, I think Bruce Lee probably will have more impact on the martial arts industry than probably anybody that we really know up to this point. Do I think Izzy has the same presence as Bruce? No. But do I think that Izzy has his own presence? You're damn right. And the difference mainly is that Bruce Lee was a philosopher. He was a studier of martial arts, which is the same as Izzy. But at the same time, he was an actor by trade. And Izzy Adesanya was a professional fighter by trade. So there is a big difference.
Speaking of that, on that line, there was much to do about the fighter that they signed for the UFC, the one that actually knocked out Izzy. Now, this is an interesting tactic because obviously Izzy's doing his thing. He's amazing to watch fight, et cetera. But then, so the organization signs, and I'm trying to get the guy's name. Alex Pereira.
The guy who fought Izzy and knocked him out in kickboxing?
Yes, Alex Pereira. So,
did he lose to him twice or just once?
Yes. According to what I'm looking at right now, he lost to him twice. Second was a KO with the left hook. The first fight was a unanimous decision. Now, with that being said, it's interesting as a fighter. Like, for example, there's some guys that just have your number, and it's hard to explain. Where you're just like, just can't. I don't understand. I got 2 feet, 2 hands. I can't seem to get past this guy. Like, I remember watching way back in the Sugar Shane Mosley, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name, who he just could not beat. They were like, yeah, this guy beat him when they were in the juniors, when they were kids coming up, and he was never able to beat the guy. So someone can look up that record. But you wonder now. Also, the Israel Adesanya that fought in Glory Kickboxing is a completely different animal than the one that's fighting in the UFC right now. That is an MMA fighter.
Mhm.
Obviously, he's had to study ground fighting. He's had to, utilize his tax and everything. What would you think is going through Izzy's head when you find out that UFC has signed Alex Pereira? A guy that obviously has a name because of you.
I mean, I think that you can judge a lot based off of his last loss as to what's going on in his mentality. When Izzy lost the last time I watched him fight, who was he fighting? Was it Alex?
Oh,
Jan?
for kickboxing or for
UFC. Was it Jan?
no, for Jan Blachowicz when
Yeah.
he
So when
went up
he
in.
fought Jan, he lost in that fight. And in the press conference, you would have never known that he had lost a fight. He
Mhm.
was he was very humble. He was like, sometimes you lose, it happens. He wasn't super emotional about it. He wasn't crying, from my knowledge anyway. Maybe when the lights and cameras weren't on him, but he seemed like he was very at peace with the fact that that's a huge possibility. And for a guy who spent so much time winning to take a loss after so long of a win
Of a
streak,
streak, yeah.
it could really damage you, man. There are guys who fall apart. They're like, oh my God, like
Oh,
that.
some
That
people
is,
believe that I can't lose. Remember, if you remember, just to take it back a little bit, Diego Sanchez believed he was destined to retire undefeated
hmm,
in the UFC. And if you believe so much in that, on yourself, you take that first L, it could shake you. You're just like, everything I believed in, was wrong,
hmm,
and it'll just shake you to your core.
hmm. When it comes down to Izzy and that particular situation, I don't think it would rattle him. To be honest, I don't think that it
Mhm.
would bother him at all, because if that fight did happen, I think that he would take it, and he would take it as an opportunity to try to redeem himself. But if he lost again, I really don't think it would shake his foundation as a person. I think he
Yeah,
would just be like, I lost, and then he'd go
and
on to be him. Like, I think that's one thing I love about that dude is he is himself all the time,
yes,
all the time. Like, I've been able to meet him several times, and it's been always a good interaction. And what you see is what you
that's
get.
who he is.
He
That's
is
exactly
that
right.
person, whether he's won, whether he's lost. I think that he was just one of those people that were born just to be real chill all the time.
Just all
And
the time.
this is how he is.
Shout out to Izzy's hometown there, Philip. Appreciate that. Now let me see. Here's another one. Do you think the Adesanya Pereira fight will happen in the UFC? Kind of hard to tell right now. Well, okay, so Izzy's got his hand full right now. He's fighting Robert Whitaker, and let's go ahead and get this up right now. It's a great segue to go ahead and put up. Currently, what's coming up from the UFC offering, and these are all their upcoming fights. But if we scroll down here to February 12th, Adesanya's fighting Whitaker. Okay, this is Whitaker's chance to avenge that loss. And if you watch that first fight, man, Izzy just seemed like he was just 3 steps ahead of Whitaker every
Yeah.
time. And Bobby Knuckles is tough, man. He's as tough as they come.
You
And
know,
he,
the hard part about that particular division is Izzy's kind of ran shot over that division. Like, who else? Who else is there? So I think
yeah,
that talking about would that fight happen. I mean, there's a solid possibility that Dana White would be like, if he beats Whitaker, then let's see what he does, and then let's see if we can make that fight happen, specifically because that's an
mhm,
easy fight to build up for money. Like, if you're a
right.
promoter, you're thinking, how do we get butts in the seats? And that would
Mhm.
get butts in the seats.
It's funny because you've gone from one middleweight king, which would have been Anderson Silva, that every time, oh, he beat, he knocked this guy out. Okay, who's the biggest? Okay, Vitor. Boom, and knocked Vitor out. And there's just name after name after name after name. And then Silva loses, really, to me, unexpectedly, Chris Weidman. Now, Chris Weidman does defeat him soundly both times. But then you go from one middleweight king to the next new middleweight king. And oddly enough, those two guys fought, which was a classic matchup in itself. And you have that good problem if you're Izzy. You've cleaned out that division. Now, of course, you do have, to quote Danny Cormier, the fat kid in your division. I'm in your weight bracket. I'm down here hustling, as he told John Jones, I'm the fat kid in the division. But, he's down there and he's swimming around and Alex had a brutal knockout his UFC. The last time I saw him, I don't think that was his debut, but the last time I saw him in the UFC, brutal knockout. And yes, he's in the waters. And you're right. That does make for good fight. Now, here's the question, though, to Dana and those guys. I look at it like this: when Ronda Rousey was running roughshod on her division, whether
Mm,
whatever your opinion on Ronda or not, But then there was Holly. Holly was coming up, a former professional boxer, and I was like, yeah, she just entered MMA. She's got 2 or 3, not the experience that Ron had, and all of a sudden, bam, let's go ahead and put these 2 competitors together. In my opinion, it was like opening your Christmas presents on Thanksgiving. They did a little bit early, but look what we got out of it. So does Dana do that, knowing that yes, this next big story will be for Alex and Izzy?
This is something that's happened quite a few times over the years, and it's no secret that Dana White over the years has found guys. He's like, you're going to be a superstar, and we're going to make it happen right now. And it's happened too fast, too soon in their careers, and they got put in positions they shouldn't have been put in. And obviously he does this for a living. He knows what he's doing as a promoter. Obviously he's, the man when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, it really has done a number on some people's careers. Like if you look at somebody like Sage Northcutt, for instance, right? Sage Northcutt, I think he was pushed too hard, too soon, too fast into fights he was not prepared for, because he could have been that superstar status because he was an attractive dude. He was in shape and people liked his personality because of how nice he was. It also happened with, I forget her name right now, and I do not know why it's escaping me. She's now in bare knuckle.
Wait a second. I know you're talking about, and now I forgot her name. Okay, hold on. Very attractive.
Yes.
On Dancing with the Stars. This is terrible.
Anyway, it's happened before is the point. And so I would hope that what Dana White would do is allow him the opportunity to work his way up and get 3 fights under him at least before he tried to make that happen, instead of going, all right, I'm going to give you a fight, you're going to do well, and then let's go ahead and put you in there for the title. And people would be like, oh, he would never do that. That would never happen so soon. He already did that several times, especially when that was something, so much potential. I wish he would have built him up. Exactly. I agree, Michael, 100%. I do wish that would have been a slower pace and would have been allowed to simmer a little bit more. But at the end of the day, Sage is okay. And also, he was a Team Full Circle member back in the day, too. So shout out to him.
An incredibly nice guy. Definitely would give Wonder Boy a competition for the nicest
guy,
which Wonder Boy currently has right now. From also knowing Sage, incredible martial artist, strong as a freaking bull, man. The guy's
great kickboxer. That's
strong.
for sure.
Great kickboxer, smart, nice, and another guy like what you said with Izzy. The way you see him, the way yes sir, no sir, the way he talks, and the way he is 100%.
Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt is who I was talking about.
Could not call that for the life of me. Like
my head and brain, just when it came to getting that name out, I just couldn't.
I believe it's 2022. We hadn't done a show yet. We're 12 days into the year. Hadn't done a show. I blame it on that. So
just knocking off cobwebs, man.
I know. So this is a fight that I think is interesting. You got Giga versus Calvin Kattar. So a quick link for Calvin Kattar up there in the Northeast. A good friend of the show, a good friend of mine, Ross Levine, who fought in Glory and is now fighting in Karate Combat, has been working with Calvin to get ready for Giga. And the thing that I like about Giga is he's got his kicks, man. He's an incredible, kicker, a dynamic kicker. And they see, they're not necessarily, I know he can do flashy stuff, but from what he's shown already in the UFC, I'm looking forward to more. But Calvin's as tough as they come. And of course, you brought in Ross because the styles are a little bit similar from Ross doing a lot of point stuff and a lot of kickboxing. That you need a guy like that in there. Like Raymond Daniels was brought in to Gilbert Burns' camp to help him prepare for Wonder Boy.
And Tyron Woodley brought in like 3 high-level sport karate guys when he was going to fight Wonder Boy, which was really smart.
Avery Plowden was one of those. Richard Plowden's son. And a couple other guys.
Brought in these fantastic point fighters, which was something that's funny, is because I guess in the industry they call them casuals, would be like, karate's ridiculous, karate doesn't work. Meanwhile, when Wonder Boy was coming up, like his all the way up until the last few fights coming up, he was just smoking dudes with point style karate. You look at somebody like Michael Venom Page, smoking dudes with point style karate. Raymond Daniels, smoking dudes with point style karate. And then somebody along the line goes, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this. Let's bring in some guys to help me understand this better. And then they can start defending it. And so that's the beautiful thing about anything in MMA is that there are these ebbs and flows. It's like, all right, everybody's doing wrestling is doing great, and then somebody shuts it down and like, all right, well, we got to learn that thing that's shutting it down. All right, jiu-jitsu is coming back. All right, we got to learn, get up our jiu-jitsu game because we got to make sure that we can defend and we can attack doing jiu-jitsu. And then all of a sudden you get this like, all right, we're going to get some straight up brawlers coming back in. And then that just throwing those haymakers and seeing what sticks starts to become a thing again. And, it's really interesting to see how it just keeps evolving. And what's really funny is seeing techniques that are so old that guys now are seeing them. They're like, oh, that's crazy. I've never seen that before. It's like, because you're young.
Right. You're like people have been doing this for the past 20, 30, 40 years. It is funny. And I definitely agree with being from competing a lot in point karate myself. One of my huge highlights was, well, one, getting a chance to interview George St. Pierre, and two, getting a chance to train. Actually did some point karate with George St. Pierre.
Oh, snap, that's awesome.
Look, you gotta understand, when you walk in that room, and I'm walking down the hallway, and George's got this secret facility in Canada. It doesn't look like a dojo, but you walk there, these giant murals of Japanese symbols, and there's pictures of him training blindfolded with one of the Gracies. And then there's an octagon way over there. And you're like, that's GSP. And he comes over and says, hi, my name is George. And he just introduces himself just as a casual guy. And then, my coach said, did you bring your gear? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, come on and get in the ring. The amount of excitement I had in the locker room, like, oh my God. It's happening. It was great. And he couldn't have been better, man. He was, and he's a guy that he wanted to learn the point style. Raymond Daniels has been up there to train with him. Wonder Boy's been up there to train with him. He wanted to learn that because he saw an advantage and using that. And the thing that's interesting, if you look at his last fight with Michael Bisping, he used a little bit of that stuff setting up, defense, offensive and front leg side kicks that is more famous in the point karate style. So you can take what it's truly supposed to be, mixed martial arts. Let's take a little bit from this. Let's take a little bit from this. Let's take a little bit from this. And let's mix it all together and use it at the proper time and the proper scenario to be successful with it.
And you'll notice like a lot of guys have a really hard time defending lead leg round kicks because they don't expect it. Because
you don't see it coming. It can be almost
typically in Muay Thai, and obviously this is, flexible depending on the fighter, but typically in Muay Thai, you typically kick with the back leg. It's with a round kick anyway. You can front teep with the lead leg, blah, blah, blah. We can get into semantics. But at the end of the day, it throws a lot of guys off when you go, you throw the cross, you throw the lead hook, and all of a sudden that front leg round kick pops up. They're not expecting that particular leg because not a lot of guys do that. That's a very specific skill set that you need to really work on and learn. And so you see a lot of guys get caught with that. And Stephen Thompson has caught plenty of dudes with that lead leg round kick that they just did not expect. And if I remember correctly, which I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure that's what caught Ronda Rousey as well, was a lead leg round kick.
Just like you said, you don't see it. It's just right there. This kind of goes along with this as well. From Ravi says, the next coming fighter who will be able to eliminate Dagestani wrestling style. I believe it would be a Cuban fighter purely because the Dagestani style is just to dominate against American wrestling. And this is also going back to that circle, all of a sudden, this is now hot. You got guys like Khabib, you got guys like Islam, Makhachev, they're coming over, and they're doing this style of wrestling. Those guys they're grinders, this, that, and the other. And you're right, it's going to be something like that that'll be somewhat dominant until someone shoots a silver bullet in it. I was completely surprised that Chael Sonnen getting taken down Anderson Silva the first time they fought because he was such a strong wrestler against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. People have said that American wrestling was the silver bullet for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think it's the application of it, and the situation that it's in.
And you'll see, I think what you're going to wind up seeing is you're going to wind up seeing something that's really unique because styles blend a lot more now, than they used to. You'll see like some guy who is a fantastic wrestler now with a little bit more of a karate footwork. And you'll be like, oh, that's really odd. And I think that's probably going to be the thing that's going to wind up putting a squash to something like that, is something so unorthodox that you're like, I don't know what to do with this because no one does this, And you'll see it every once in a while. Like, for instance, John Jones really likes to wrench the arm from the overhook. He'll wrench the arm forward. And again, that's nothing new. That's super old. And people see that and they go, oh.
This is a brand new technique.
Yeah. Or you see somebody like, McGregor when he shoulder checked a Cowboy in the face. And people are like, we could do that? Oh, let's just do that.
There are no rules that say you can't.
Foot stomping disappeared for a really long time, and then all of a sudden people started foot stomping again. It's like, why did it go away? Like, I think that's what's going to wind up happening with that is you're going to see something so unorthodox that you're going to be like, okay, I feel that, but if I was in the ring, I wouldn't be able to adapt to that because I wouldn't be prepared for it because no one was doing it.
Right. It is always expect the unexpected. Like, for example, obviously, and we'll segue into this with that. We got Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. So these two guys used to train with each other, but you're also training to defend what that guy showed last. So, for example, with Gane, you got that great. I mean, moves fantastic for a heavyweight. He's very light on his feet. Got some great strikes. He looks like I've seen a couple submissions out of him. Okay, Ngannou, you know what's coming. Don't be there when it arrives. Listen, that's the best advice for your health's sake. Do not be in the way of that man's fists and also his legs too. If he decides to kick you, so you kind of know what you're looking at. But we're also looking at, well, the last time we saw Cyril Gane, he did this, completely forgetting the fact that he's training right now for some stuff that you haven't seen before. Maybe he's improving. Maybe he's bringing a couple high kicks there. Maybe he's doing this, that, and the other. Maybe Francis is, working on not extending himself, using so much power and finding, tuning the finesse.
Well, we've already seen that. Like when you look at his first fight with Stipe versus his next fight with Stipe, it was so different. From a technical standpoint, if you looked at it, was almost like watching him fight as an amateur and watching him fight as a pro.
Exactly.
It was night and day. And Stipe was able to use his ability to be calm in the ring and the first fight and just pick him apart slowly over the rounds, take him into deep water and drown him, which he did extremely well. And every time, even then, every time Ngannou was throwing a shot, the whole audience got real quiet. They were like, everybody be cheering. Oh, you know what would have happened. But at the time, Stipe was able to outsmart that. Ngannou, the second time, was able to relax a little bit more, not put as much pressure. He was able to chill and see the opportunity that he needed to take and put him away. And he did. And I think that if you're looking at how he's going to be in his next fight, I think he's going to be even more terrifying. And I think he's going to be even more sharp and even more crisp just from seeing that. And obviously those fights were very long periods away from each other. But, I just think there's something to be said about coming from the place that he came from in his life to where he is now. And there's a reason that you have the saying, a hungry fighter. And that is a literal statement. That is not a metaphor. When you hear about hungry fighters back in the day, it's because they were literally fighting for a sandwich. Like they were trying to get fed, right? And so this guy comes from that. And I think that he's maintained that mentality, been able to keep himself hungry. And now that he is on top, I do not think that he's going to take that for granted. I think he's going to bust his hump to make sure that he puts in that work and puts away game.
Also, the interesting twist, as you mentioned, that you've got two guys from the same gym. There was some sparring footage released not too long ago about like, hey, Cyril used to get the best of Ngannou back when they're playing. And there's always something there with someone that's in the same dojo or in the same gym that you're like, you kind of know between each other, like, hey, guess what? When we both go up on Friday night, when we kind of let it all hang out, I'm going to always best you. And one of those two fighters, well, actually both of them know that, okay, this is true. But when then you go out and you tell everybody, back in the dojo, I'd mop the floor with this guy. That's breaking a little bit of a code, which is always like,
that's a private moment.
Exactly.
But it's a good way to get into someone's head. The only problem with that is that there is a difference between sparring and fighting someone. And I realized that very quickly from doing a lot of training sessions with guys that I knew I was going to be competing with later on down the road. They're just different animals. Like just because you might best someone in sparring does not mean you will best them when you fight, because you might handle fight day differently. You might be nervous and he might not, he might be like, all right, well, let's see what happens. There's a big difference between sparring and really fighting another person. And so putting that out there, you might get into the person's head, but his response to that was very telling. He said, I was there and I know what happened. And so something's telling me that he probably is not concerned whatsoever with the past. I think he knows where he is, and he's solidified in his ability to maintain his championship status.
I agree with that. Quick question from Robbie. Does Cyril have the ability to finish Ngannou by gassing him out? And how will his power fade in the later rounds of the fight last that long? So, good question. Obviously, Ngannou knows that his gas tank and also the big muscles that he has, that is going to be, I'll quote Rogan, hey, those big muscles need oxygen. Yeah, somewhat true. But if you're that big, you already have an idea how your body functions if you step on the gas. But you also know if your body functions when you step on the gas and you separate souls and you literally become one of those ghost characters. Like shout out to Moji. Man, I always mess this guy's name up. Mojideen. He has this 3D animation he always releases after every UFC. If you want to become a member of that ghost club, yeah, sure. Francis knows that, and everybody that steps in that ring knows that as well. With that being said, Cyril does have a lot of lateral movement. This is going to be in the Honda Center, so they're going to have they should have the big UFC ring. I think the fight favors Francis a whole lot if they were in the Apex and they had that smaller octagon versus the big one. So that gives God a lot more chances to move around and to make Francis chase him and, counterattack and everything. But still, both these guys know that. It's like having an open book test in high school.
I think that if you're game, and this is just thinking outside the box. Ngannou, again, has evolved extremely well over his career. I mean, you could see almost from fight to fight him getting better. His timing, his accuracy, his ability to stay calm in the pocket is unreal. Like, he's calm. Like, you can just see he's just checking out what's going on, observing what's going on. And he is a champion for sure. But if you're game, how do you take him off of that? Do you throw in a monkey in the wrench, and do you just kind of keep him on his heels and be aggressive? Would he expect you to be aggressive? Because I wouldn't want to. How it was put to me by a man named Calvin Thomas is one of my coaches back in the day, is that you are playing tennis with another human being. And in tennis, you have the net and you have options. Where you do not want to be is in the middle of the court, because the ball can go anywhere and you would have to run to get to the ball. So what you want to do is either be way on the outside so you can observe the playing field and see where the ball is going to land and get yourself to where you need to be, which would be staying on the outside of Ngannou and letting him kind of throw shots, miss, and maybe gas himself out potentially, play that game. Or do you rush the net? Are you so heavy against the net that you're charging and you're slamming that ball down and trying to make the other person get on their heels and having to react? And so if I had to guess, granted, I'm never going to fight this man, but if I had to guess, I would think that would be something that'd be more advantageous, is for him to get on the inside, push that pace to more of a wrestling clinch, and then you can eliminate the fact that this dude has that power to really just rock you. And then hopefully you can stay glued to him and keep that pressure.
That's a good look at it, and that's it. And also what you were mentioning before, when it comes to game day, how do you perform? The one thing that I don't know how I got it. Whenever I would compete, like I can remember many years being at the U.S. Open, I'm just counting like 50 people in my division. Like, all right, cool, one fight at a time, and I would just not be nervous. In fact, I would thrive off of that. I'd be more nervous in the dojo for people that I would fight every week. But here, I would always be relaxed and just happy. If you can carry that type of mentality in there, one, you're not going to be as tired. You're not going to, gas yourself out and everything else. So definitely a great analogy by Calvin Thomas, who I've seen fight many times at the U.S. Open. And I agree with Michael on that. Speeding down the line, let's see. We got who else is in this? Okay, so you got another rematch between Figueiredo and Monero for this. I loved when Monero won this belt. I mean, it's something about, I don't know this man from Adam, but watching him, and he's a babyface assassin, and just seeing that moment when he was so happy when he won that title and realizing how life-changing it was going to be. And it's weird because you have two people fighting against each other. It's human instinct to like, well, I like this guy better than that guy. I like the way he looks. I like the way he talks. I like the way he dresses. I like his style. And we're kind of being forced to pick. It's not like that great Monday Night Football game where I was like, I don't care who wins between the Chargers and the Raiders. This was an amazing game. You kind of forced to pick one. And I love the fact that Moreno got that, and he he had some success. And I looked into his backstory, and it is that backstory about the fighter, like you mentioned, being a hungry fighter, knowing that Ngannou was homeless, literally homeless outside of the boxing gym, and you know, a guy, you know, brought him in and trained him. Also, one other thing I forgot to mention about that, this is his last fight on his UFC contract. So if he
Oh,
wins and he has the belt, he has, from what I've read, he wants to have it in his contract that you're going to have to allow me to box, because he's been talking to Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury says, I'll box you with 4-ounce gloves on. And he wants to have that leverage like Connor had to go over and box and yet still be under his UFC contract.
well, I think that you would have leverage with the title. Without it, you
Mm-hmm.
probably not gonna happen. But with the title and with the name,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a great book. I don't know if you've ever read it or not, but it's called Fightnomics.
Fightnomics.
Fightnomics. It is a fantastic book, and it's actually my way of cheating when I gamble. but um, but Fightnomics kept statistics from UFC 1 to all the way to 100. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, Fightnomics is like Moneyball, but for MMA. So it
Interesting.
allows you to look at statistics and kind of be able to break down who you think will win in a more analytical way.
Let's throw
And
that
so,
out there real quick.
oh
There you
yeah,
go.
that's it. And so not only that, but just as a heads up, Dwayne Ludwig,
Yes.
and Trevor Whitman, and one other person. I forget who it is. They actually, Boz Rutan, I think. But Dwayne Ludwig, Trevor Whitman, and Boz Rutan got together and they started their own thing. And it's called the Tao of MMA. And they based it off of that book. And so basically what they did was they looked at the statistics. Like, for instance, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but all your percentage chance of getting a submission as rounds go on actually drops drastically, like
Mm-hmm.
night and day,
Mm-hmm.
except for one submission. Only one submission, your percentage chance goes up to get it. And that's a triangle choke because you're tired, you're on your back, so you get to rest. The person's in your guard, their posture is down, and it allows you the opportunity to get the triangle choke easier because all the ingredients are needed, right? But that book has told me so much that I didn't really know on fighting because who keeps numbers like that with fighting? Everybody talks about techniques working or they don't. This book tells you which ones do and which ones don't. So the reason I bring that up is because I think that if you look, like for instance, at this particular fight that we're looking at right now, like the odds of you winning a fight based off of your age is drastic. Typically, now I'm just going off the numbers here, the younger guy wins the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I look at fights like this, I go right to the stats. I need to see the stats because those are going to tell me everything I need to know. And that's based off of a track record of these things. Again, this is based off of UFC 1 to 100. And
Mm-hmm.
so with all of that factored in, it's kind of cool to be able to like pick the guy like you were talking about, the one that you got to go for. I'm not going to lie. I don't care who it is. I look at the numbers
Right,
because
right.
they don't
Data
lie.
doesn't lie. Data does not lie. So statistically, you would have definitely lost money when Glover Teixeira won that belt
I would have
because
I would have
you.
lost so much money. But the thing is that John Hackelman's a friend of mine, and
Mhm.
he's been nothing but cool to me, and I always root for his guys, so I would have been okay there. But
Mhm.
like that same thing with Stephen Thompson. I'm always going to root for Stephen Thompson,
Absolutely.
always. I just have friends. I'm going to root for my friends, but if we're just like picking two guys that I don't really, like I don't know these guys from Adam, like you were talking about before. I'm
Right.
gonna pick the ones based off the numbers so I can get that bread. I'm trying to
Right.
get
Right. Hey,
paid.
at the end of the day, it's about that. Speaking of Glover Teixeira, super nice guy. I was taking a picture with Hackelman and Vegas years back, and I had gotten him there, and I gotten up the curve like, can I get a picture with you? And then I was like, I need someone to take the picture, and I heard someone say, hey, I'll take the picture. And I turned around, it was Glover, hand and cast and all. It was like, I need a picture with you next. Total nice guy, absolute amazing person. But I mean, and also you find that in every sport. So we're gonna start winding this thing down. One other point I wanted to point out: we've got Jack Mercer versus Sean Strickland. If ever there was a hand grenade that was placed in a human body, that would be Sean Strickland. This guy is absolutely fight anywhere, anyone, anytime for whatever. Go follow this guy on whatever social media he's not been suspended on and watch some of his training
Well,
sessions.
he had a really interesting altercation with a
Oh,
very famous jiu-jitsu black belt a while
mm-hmm,
back,
mm-hmm,
where he was I guess according to the Jiu-Jitsu black belt, I'm not just going to toss out names like that, but Strickland's name's already up here, so I'll just leave it be. But, I guess Strickland came into that particular gym, according to that black belt, was being fairly disrespectful because the black belt that he was talking trash about isn't as a bigger guy. He's just a naturally rounder guy. It's kind of like if you saw DC, you wouldn't just be like, oh, well, he obviously is a fighter. Like you would think he's like the dad from like Family Man, but when it comes down to it, he was, I guess the black belt took it the wrong way and thought that he was in danger because of the guy talking trash. And so he wound up doing that same arm wrench we were talking about that John Jones likes to do. And Strickland got upset and angry and I guess stormed out of the gym. Well, now just the hypocrisy is amazing to me. Now, just like only like a couple weeks ago, you can see video of Strickland like literally knocking out a sparring partner when you can hear people being like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so like, at the end of the day, like Strickland's admitted that he's wanted to literally kill a person in the ring, which, come on, like Tyson has admitted to wanting to do way worse to people, way worse crimes. But when it comes down to it, man, like I have a hard time rooting for him because of that persona. And maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he's trying to be that heel to get that attention, to get the butts in the seats, to get the money. And maybe he's a great guy. I don't know him personally, but I'm saying when we're talking about picking people, not based off of statistics, he's one of those people I just have a really hard time rooting for.
I can understand that. I've seen that footage, that sparring footage. And it reminds me of the stories you hear about, I think it was AKA where every round is just like literally like a championship fight round. And you wonder why, Kane was pulling out with an injury and this guy's injured. And like, they're training like that. Hey, I got to put this up. Prime Wonder War versus Israel. I'd love to see that. That would have been, this is your fantasy UFC 26 on PlayStation/Xbox. That's the only way you're going to get this fight.
What's funny is when Stephen Thompson fought, who did he fight? Damn it. I don't know. Burns. When he fought Gilbert Burns, right? And also Gilbert Burns is also sponsored by the same company as I am. And I've met him before and he's a really nice dude. And I'm like, that dude's pretty awesome. And I'm looking at Stephen Thompson, like he's a homie. I had a hard time watching the fight. I had such a hard time watching the fight because those are people that you're like, oh man, I like both of these guys. I want to see them do well. That would be a fight I might not even be able to watch. Like I would just be like, oh man, these dudes are homies. Like I don't want this to happen, but like I kind of want to see how it would go down. Like that would be a great fight. Now I'll trump that though, and I would love to see Raymond Daniels versus Michael Venom Page.
That now they fought many times.
Yep.
In point. Now, in fact, if you know who you're talking, all right, first of all, if you don't know who we're talking about, shame on you. Immediately assign yourself to do research on YouTube. As soon as this broadcast is over, Google Raymond Daniels and go down that rabbit hole. But he fought Page, I think it was at the Irish Open. And there was a little bit of a dance contest that broke out between two rounds. You could Google it, you could find it, but these two guys are just amazing athletes in terms of knowing their martial art, knowing their skills. And Ray himself, what I thought you were going to say is that I know he had recently suggested like, hey, if I ever get a chance to go to South Carolina, I'd love to come train with Wonderboy. They had that brief fight in the World Combat League, WCL, but it ended due to Wonderboy getting injured in the fight, which was declared a no contest, et cetera, et cetera. But, he's always said, I'd love to come train. I was like, you know what? South Carolina's not that far from me. If you guys make that happen, I will take off work and come down there just to watch. Just to watch that.
I'm actually going up to South Carolina next week to go see Stephen Thompson and to go work with a couple other guys, IC Mike and Sensei Seth. So I'll be able to get some footage and it'll be a good time to get up there and really just be a student because there's just so much wealth of knowledge up there. Stephen Thompson's dad has been at this forever, and so it'll be really cool to just be there and just soak that in.
He's a former guest. He's got some stories. Ray is I could sit. He's got that draw where you just sit there. It's like you could just sit and listen to him tell stories of, oh, back in the day we did this, or telling him about this is how Stephen got the nickname Wonder Boy. He was this amount of years old, and we put him there against the adult, and the guy was like, after he knocked him out, where did you get that Wonder Boy? And the name stuck and everything. Just to hear, that stuff. Ray Thompson is that guy, and a great coach. I'm jealous. You got that coming up and everything. But hey, appreciate the hang. It's been about an hour. We'll be back soon. I know, like I said, Robin he's traveling here, there, everywhere. We're going to be back on a regular schedule soon. Rob, of course, thank you for always filling in, bringing the fun. McDojo Life on Instagram and on Facebook too, and on YouTube. Follow him. Be very careful. I know that pretty soon we're going to have news about that documentary that's going to be coming out. And
it's filmed, man. We're working on distribution, so I cannot wait for people to see it. Oh my God. If I could just talk about some of the stuff we were talking about before we went on, I got to hold it in.
We got to hold it back. That's the first, but soon, very soon. Guys, follow us over at Sport Martial Arts. We will be in Chicago next week for the AKA Warrior Cup. Follow us at sportmartialarts.com and Sport Martial Arts on Facebook. We'll be bringing that to you live. We got a new partnership with Black Belt Magazine, Jungle TV, and Century. So got to do some live stuff. They'll have yours truly mispronouncing every name he can for anybody that's in the tournament. Once your name is mispronounced by me, that's how you know you made it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon. Rob, we're going to hang just a minute after this. So thanks, guys. Catch you later on.